morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are in day 2 of our World Ocean Week live events. We have a crazy week coming up. Yesterday, if you want to catch any of the videos, we had some great events, including hanging out with Victor Vescovo, who was the first person to dive to the deepest point in each of the 5 oceans. And we started the day with Andy Casagrande, who films great white sharks all over the world. I don't think there's anybody who's been in the water more with great white sharks than Andy. So you want to check those 2 out. Those were great events yesterday. To see everything else coming up this week, you want to head to exploringbytheseat.com/lessons/Ocean Week, or you can just jump on the site and look at the lessons. So exploringbytheseat.com, you can see everything we still have in our ocean action this week. And then after that, we've just got a handful of events and we'll wind things down for the school year. So we're at that stage where we'll take a break for the summer and then start things up again in September shortly. So let's get into today's action. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Arctic. We're going to spend some time with Andreas B. Heide. He is a Norwegian marine biologist, sailor, filmmaker, and a former military diver. He uses his Arctic sailing vessel, Barba, as a platform for scientific collaboration and storytelling with a broader context of ocean conservation. So he has led numerous expeditions in those higher latitudes, up in the Arctic, up to the sea ice, working with scientists, educators, storytellers from all over the world come on board with him. So they're blending adventure, research, and storytelling, focusing on the wildlife, the whales in particular, the changing polar environment. And so the goal really is to try and bring audiences to the beauty of the Arctic, the marine world, and show how it is changing. So let's grab Andreas here from backstage. Hey, Andreas, how are you?
Hi, Joe. Good to see you. I'm good, thanks. In the office today, and I'll be showing you some of the work we do when we're out sailing.
All right, sounds good to me. We have a great crew signed up for today, so classrooms in Canada and the US. Don't be shy to use that chat sidebar. Let us know where you're tuning in from and send in questions at any time because after Andreas presents, we're going to jump into that Q&A action. So I will leave things over to you. Let's get into your world a little bit.
Sounds good, Joe. So I'll start by showing a film we shot in Svalbard in 2023. So Svalbard being up in the pack ice, not too far away from the North Pole. So let's see, 1 second here. Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, we got it, Andreas. You just have to bring the presentation to the front.
Perfect. So we're going to start with this 3-minute video from Svalbard.
Are you sure you don't want to lose it? Come on. Okay. Are you sure? Yes. Don't worry. Okay. I trust you, Andreas. Yep. Yes, he's getting it. Good job, guys. He's getting it. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at a map of the polar bear concentration, and it looks a lot like where we are. Yeah, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I think
In the children's corner, show us what do you have here. What is this? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna push that other one. Yeah, I'll push it with the bow. Is the 360 filming?
You think of those polar bear pictures and the orcas? Pretty cool. All right, let's get a couple questions.
What you've seen today, you can just go tell them about it, and they might get interested. They might learn a lot more. They might contribute into the field more significantly.
So that was a little bit of a sneak peek into some of the work we do. Joe mentioned my name, Andreas Heide. I'm from Norway, an expedition sailor. And today I will talk you through some of the work we do and how we make the magic happen in the field as a science and storytelling platform. So one of the most critical elements to the work we do is the people. So in this photo we have Marta Trodal. She's a oceanographer. So she specializes in meteorology or forecasting how the ocean behaves. And then we also have Alex Maloney. She's a former Olympic sailor from New Zealand. As for myself, this is where I grew up. And I remember being a little boy, I was always looking out at the sea, being curious about what was under the surface and beyond the horizon. And this is where I kept playing, catching crabs. And with time, it evolved with a small boat and now bigger boats. I also have a background as a military diver. And for 4 years, I worked as a researcher at the Norwegian Institute of Marine Research with exploring the ocean. But today, my main tool for ocean exploration is the little sailing boat that I have, Barba. It's 37 foot, 12 meters. So it fits about 5 to 6 people. What I'll show you next, it's first and foremost, it's a sailing vessel. So with the sails, we're able to cover tremendous distances and explore the environment at a low cost. So what I'll show you now, this is from last winter with the crew when we're out sailing in the snow. And this is one of the things I love with the work we do, is to be out in the storms, harvesting the forces of nature, using the sails, reading the environment, but also then covering great distances. And the film we saw initially was from the expedition we did to Svalbard back in 2023, going all the way up to the pack ice where polar bear lives and where there is pack ice all year round. So as you saw in the video, we use lots of different tools. In this photo, you can see an underwater scooter that I use for swimming fast underwater to be able to keep up with whales. We'll see more of that later in the presentation. Also, we use an ROV, and an ROV is an underwater drone or an underwater robot that allows us to film underwater. And you could see the walrus. We wouldn't dive with walrus normally because they're very dangerous, but using the ROV, we can get up close and film the walrus. And it's quite a complex system to operate this ROV. And this is Antoine, so he's a former gamer from France, and he wanted to explore the marine environment. And he figured out the best way for him was to acquire this high-tech device and take part in the ocean world. And today he works with National Geographic, Disney, and travels the world with his ROV system to film. Another crew member, this is Giulia Ercoletti. When she was a little girl, she wanted to be a marine biologist. And today she works with the PAMGuard system, where we listen for whales and do live interpretations in the field. So with the system, we can hear whale recordings and we can tell what kind of a whale it is, if it's a beluga whale or if it's a sperm whale or a Greenlandic whale or dolphins. And this is what it looks like. This is what we're seeing on the screen when we're looking for the whales. And one of my favorite whale species is the beluga whale. So this is a beluga whale friend I had some time back. His name was Valdemir, and the beluga whale is all white so that it can protect it, so as a camouflage, because it lives up in the ice. So this will blend nicely in with the white ice sheets. So what I'm going to play for you next is a beluga whale sound recording. So this is what it sounds like when we put a hydrophone, which is an underwater sound recorder, in the water. Let's see. So to me, it's amazing to, thinking back to that photo growing up, looking at the ocean, wondering what's under the surface. So it's not only the things we see, it's also the things we hear. And when we look at the sea, we might think it's quite calm underwater, but it's not. We have a lot of animals, fish and whales that use the sounds to communicate. And what we'll see next is another species that's very vocal. This is dolphins, and we met with a couple of thousand dolphins in northern Norway last year. Let's see. So this is a humpback whale, and then we have dolphins in the background, and we have all the seagulls. So looking from the surface, this all looks very spectacular. But of course, even more interesting is what is happening under the surface. So this is what it looked like when I got in the water. So what you see here is a school of fish. It's called capelin, that the dolphin has pushed together so that it's easier for the dolphin to eat this fish. And here you can see how I use the underwater scooter to be fast and nimble underwater. This is the same day with different group of dolphins, but you can see how many there are. And this day we had thousands of dolphins, and these are some of the things I could never even imagine in my wildest dreams. So yes, this is a photo taken by my friend Tord, where we can see the underwater scooter, the wetsuit, and it's quite cold in the water, but with this wetsuit we can stay for a couple of hours, even when it's almost freezing cold in the Norwegian winter. We can also see an orange hood so that it's easy for the people on the surface to see us when we're in the water. And here you see a photo of the underwater scooter with the 360 camera fitted in the front. So this was a short sneak peek into some of the work we do from the sailing vessel Barba. So maybe you have some questions for us now, Joe.
All right, absolutely, Andreas. Let me switch the screen around a little bit. Perfect. If you want to stop your screen share, Andreas, you should be able to see us again. We'll get you nice and front and center. There we go. Perfect. Well, thank you. We've done so many of these together, but that footage that you collect from the Arctic is just like, I don't think I could ever get tired of watching the walrus and the whales and scooting with the dolphins. It's an absolutely incredible place. So, the work that you and your team does to bring it back to us here in other parts of the world is so important, because otherwise we have no idea what was up there and what we're losing.
Thank you. And it's also important for us to be able to share these experiences with you guys. And this is one of the favorite things I do, is working with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants.
All right. Excellent. Okay, well, let's get into some Q&A action. If you are tuning in via YouTube, I can see we've got a group some groups hanging out with us, so don't be shy to use that chat sidebar. And let's get right into it. And so the first question I have here is from some 6th graders, Andreas, and they're wondering, do you ever worry about the ice and your boat?
Yes, a lot. So the main thing with the ice is not to collide with the ice. So to avoid that, you have to keep a watch all the time. And the ice will float on the surface and you will see it. So that's the first thing, is not to collide with the ice. And then another thing that's very dangerous with ice, if you enter in between the ice sheets, if the wind picks up, it could close the ice around the boat and potentially sink the boat. So we're always a bit worried when we are in the ice, but it also makes it a bit exciting. And this is where the polar bears are and a lot of the marine life. So it's this balance between keeping it safe, but also keeping it exciting.
Yeah. So the next question I have here actually focuses on that wildlife. Do you have a favorite experience or encounter with wildlife in the Arctic?
Yeah, there's many. There's one is meeting with all the dolphins that I showed you. That was 2,000 to 3,000 dolphins, which is that is definitely one of my favorites. My favorites are when you see things that surpasses your wildest dreams and imaginations. So that's one of them. Once we had a polar bear that tried to climb up on the boat. That was also quite memorable. So we were a bit worried that he was going to come and eat us. But we used a wooden stick and we kept him away. And unfortunately, we didn't have to use the firearms that we always have for protection. And the polar bear is something you really need to be careful with up there. It's one of few animals that actively will hunt people. It looks at you as a meal. So when you're there, you're always looking over your shoulder, making sure there's no polar bears stalking you from the back.
Yeah.
And then also, another favorite moment, meeting with 10 blue whales up in Svalbard. And the blue whale is the biggest animal that has ever lived, much bigger than the dinosaurs. And seeing 10 of them in one day was also a dream come true.
Crazy. And I've seen the drone footage where there's one next to the boat and it makes the Barba look small. It's longer than the Barba. It's pretty wild. Yeah.
Doubles the length, actually.
Yeah. So Elena wants to know more about ice. So have you ever hit the ice or been trapped in the ice? If so, how did you solve that problem? How did you get out?
So we have never hit ice at high speed, fortunately, knock on wood. But the first time we sailed to Svalbard up into the pack ice, we were a bit too bold. We went a couple of miles into the ice, and that what wasn't supposed to happen happened. The wind picked up only a tiny bit, and then the ice started closing in around us. So we had to hoist one person up the mast, and we had to work several hours to find our way through the ice and put the bow between the ice floes and push them apart and use wooden sticks and really work to get out of that ice. So that was quite nerve-wracking, actually. But we made it out, and the boat made it back home. So now, but I'm not doing that again. So that's, you have to go out there, do some mistakes and learn from it and avoid repeating them in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So important that when you make a mistake, you do log that, you learn from it, and then it's only going to help your experience, your expeditions. And like you said, you're not going to go that far into the ice anymore. Here's a great question here from some 5th graders. How do you decide when you're going to head out on an expedition? How do you choose the locations you're going to visit during the expedition?
That's a good question. So generally, we have like a general idea about where we're sailing. So, for instance, this summer we're going to sail to Greenland. Then we know the natural route is to go from southern Norway to some islands called Shetland Islands, which is north of in the UK. And then we go on to Faroe Islands, and then we get to Iceland, and then we get to Greenland. But then the weather is going to dictate when we can sail and how long we're going to sail. And for instance, in the Faroe Islands, if there are strong winds from the north, we have to be on the southern side and the other way around. And then maybe we have to wait 4 days for good winds to then sail on to Iceland. And then we have some areas where we want to go, and sometimes the weather tells us, you can't go there. It's simply too windy. And other times there's things you didn't expect to encounter that you then end up spending a lot of time exploring. And maybe we find some bowhead whales or Greenlandic whales outside Greenland. Then I'd love to spend a day or two with these whales if we can find them. So we have a plan, and then the plan is always affected by nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow up here about storms. What are the storms like in the Arctic?
So we want to avoid the storms at all costs, because it can be very dangerous, especially for any boat in the winter. A storm can be extremely dangerous, because when it's cold, you get not only the strong winds, but you also get icing on the boat. So the sea spray freezes over, and then the ice starts building in the mast, and the boat could turn around. So this is why we check the weather forecast all the time, multiple times a day. And if we see a storm that's incoming, we try to sail away from it. And sometimes when we can't get away from it, we hide inside a fjord, drop the anchor, and wait for the storm to pass. So this is an advantage we have that I didn't have in the past, is detailed weather forecasts. So you can think 100 years back, you sailed out at sea and you didn't really know what was going to happen.
Yeah. And follow up from follow up from Elena. The polar bears, you mentioned one trying to climb up on the boat. How rare is it to see a polar bear out there and to encounter one?
If you go looking for them in the right areas, you will find them quite frequently. I think the last expedition we did, over 1.5 months, we saw 20 polar bears.
Wow.
And sometimes if you know there is a whale carcass in the area, you know that there will be bears around. So that's a bit for the polar bear, like winning the lottery if it finds a whale carcass, because then it can stay there all summer and just eat from that whale.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the Arctic. You mentioned that it's changing, faster. The Arctic and Antarctic, the polar regions are changing faster than anywhere else on the planet. And so, I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people experienced in the area. You've had lots of experience over the years sailing in the area. What are you learning about how the Arctic is changing?
Yeah, so what we know that the temperature is increasing everywhere, but it's increasing more in the Arctic than the global average. And then also a big difference, like I live in southern Norway, Stavanger, and if it's a bit warmer, we can't really tell a difference. But up in the north, if it's a bit warmer, that means that the ice disappears. So then it's a huge difference, not only for us in the way that we can sail further north than we did before, but a lot of the ecosystem, including the polar bears, they depend on the sea ice for their survival. So for instance, the polar bears uses the sea ice to go and hunt for seals. And if there is no sea ice, they are no longer able to hunt the seals efficiently. So that's something we definitely see, less and less ice, and we're able to sail further and further north. And we can see the maps that previously were covered by ice are now open for sailing. So it's a bit concerning, let's put it that way. And another thing that's concerning, and that's something we can do something with easily, is all the plastic we find in the ocean. So the plastic needs to be properly recycled and taken care of, and never thrown in nature, of course, be it on land or at sea.
Yeah. I've got some 8th graders here who are curious about what's the most rewarding part of an expedition and what's the most challenging part of an expedition.
The most rewarding part is when you've planned something for months and months, and then you finally get to experience it. Such as I remember vividly the first time I sailed to Greenland. We had sailed for weeks and planned it, of course, for half a year or maybe even a year. And then all of a sudden, one morning, we could see the icebergs of Greenland come up from the horizon. That was extremely rewarding. And the closer we got to see these gigantic icebergs. And these are the size of the Opera House in Sydney, like massive buildings that's just floating around. So I think working really hard towards something and then making it happen. That's one thing I would highlight. And another thing, when you have a well-working team, so none of these things I do alone. I always rely on having great people with me, and experiencing these things with your colleagues and friends. That's also extremely rewarding. And then sometimes it's just the mind-blowing nature encounters, the polar bears and the beluga whales and the dolphins. It's a long list with time. And then the hardest things, as a captain, you're responsible for your crew. You have a lot of risk you need to deal with. It's physically challenging over time. It's not like one day of sailing doesn't need to be that hard, but when you're out sailing for weeks and months on end, you become very tired from being switched on all the time and having to always think 10 steps ahead to deal with the environment. Because what we do, if it's done the right way, it's safe, but if you make mistakes, it can be very dangerous. So we have to avoid making those mistakes.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry.
So, no, it's fine. In the intro, I mentioned that you served in the military as a military diver. So the next question wants to know a little bit more about that. What's that like to train and work as a diver?
Yeah, as a military diver, it's very different from recreational diving. So recreational diving, like normal diving that people do, is you dive to go and look at something. But in the military, we were trained as combat divers. So meaning that the mission would be to swim out underwater, quite shallow, and then place explosive charges on a vessel, for instance, and then swim out again. So that's one of the things we're trained to do. We also dove out of submarines. So we would enter the torpedo tube of the submarine from inside the vessel, and 4 of us would crawl into the torpedo tube. They would close the hatch behind you, fill the torpedo tube with water, and then you would swim out of the submarine to then do your mission. And then also what I remember from the military, diving was always very physical because we're swimming miles and miles underwater with as fast as we could, really. And what was exciting, we had something called oxygen rebreathers. Maybe I could try to find a photo for you.
Sure.
If that's easy enough. Let's see. So if I now share my screen.
Yeah, you're already sharing. If you just bring it up to the front, I put it back in.
Perfect.
There we go. Yeah.
So in this photo, I'm in the right here. You can see we have a dry suit, where you have clothes underneath the dry suit. And then you can see on my stomach, I have an oxygen rebreather. So that's a very specialized diving equipment that doesn't release any bubbles. Because if you release bubbles, then you can be seen from the surface. So the advantage with this, no bubbles, but if you go deeper than 30 feet of water or 10 meters, you risk passing out. So it's also quite dangerous and specialized equipment. Now you can also see we used a compass and a watch to navigate underwater.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Very technical diving. You have to train a lot to use a rebreather, but it does have that benefit of, sometimes the wildlife will come closer because the bubbles aren't disturbing them as much. So do you ever use that kit?
No, right now, I would love to have that kit, but right now I don't have it. It's very specialized. So I could use it, for instance, to go and dive with seals, because the seals are scared of the scuba bubbles. So that would be a good fit for it, and possibly also whales.
Yeah. I remember not too long ago, I was diving on a shipwreck. And so we were there. We did a few dives on it over the course of a morning. And there was one guy on the boat had a rebreather. And so while we were limited to, say, 45, 50 minutes, we'd have to come up, take a break before we could go in again. He was down there for like 2-3 hours, just trucking along, swimming around the shipwreck. So yeah, it really does extend your time on the bottom too, which is pretty cool. Okay. Let's continue on with a few more questions here. So don't be shy. Use the chat sidebar. Send in a few more questions. But we'll get into another one more specifically about the boat and the expedition planning. So what's life like in closer quarters for an extended period of time? And how are you keeping warm, and what are you guys eating?
That's great questions. So there's two sides to life on the boat. In one way, it's very simple and not complicated, because you're wearing the same clothes every day, and you're sleeping where you work, more or less. So your room is a couple of steps away from your work space. So that's very nice. And then it's also very social. You always have your crew and your friends with you, around you at all times. So that's enjoyable. But then the challenging part is also these same crew members, as great as they are, when you have people around you all the time, it can be quite intense. Mm-hmm. On the longer expeditions, we can only shower every 1 or 2 weeks, which is it's nice the first couple of days, but then after a week, it starts to be nice to shower again. And when you're a long time on the boat and you're not able to go on shore, that's also physically quite exhausting, actually, like not to be able to move. And especially in polar bear land, when we do go ashore, we always have to stay together as a group in case of polar bears, so you don't get time off from your crewmates. So it's a bit of a mix. So when I'm on the boat, I miss being on shore, and then the other way around. But now it's been a while, so I look forward to going back out there this summer, going to Greenland. As for what we eat, so the first week we eat pretty standard foods, as long as we have fresh provisions. But as time progresses, we have less and less salad and less fresh ingredients, and more canned and dried food. Also, we do fish quite a bit on longer expeditions to have fresh fish at sea, which is great. But we always try to eat surprisingly well on the boat. That's important for morale and to stay warm as well. You have to eat well. And then we use a lot of wool clothes, which is the same that the sheep use, and a lot of animals out there, they use wool to stay warm, and we do the same. So wool underwear, wool sweaters, and then we have an outer membrane of Gore-Tex or similar, like something that keeps the rain out. So with that, we're able to stay warm pretty much all year. And then we have wool gloves with rubber gloves on the outside.
Yeah. What about when you hit the water? What kind of gear are you wearing on your body?
So when I hit the water, if I need to be fast in the water, I wear a wetsuit because it's like sticks to your body. So it's like slim fit. And we use that in the surface. If I'm going scuba diving, then I normally use a dry suit, which you saw a photo of in that the photo from the military. And with the dry suit, you can wear wool clothes and insulating clothes under the suit. And then you can pressurize air into your dry suit, so you stay neutral in the water, so that you don't sink or float too much, so you can stay floating just like a fish or a whale.
Yeah. So you mentioned Greenland as the next expedition this summer. So can you tell us more about what the plan is? Who's coming with you? What are you hoping to find, to film? Why Greenland?
I can show you the presentation I'm working on.
Sure.
Let's see. So are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, we got it.
Perfect. So this is the presentation I use to attract partners and also to help with sponsors to get funding for the expedition. So this is the mission, explaining why we need to do it, why we use the Barba vessel, and why it matters. And we've discussed this earlier in the presentation. So let's skip on to the map. So this is the plan. So we want to sail from Stavanger to Shetland Islands, Faroe Islands, then to Iceland. And then we want to go out at sea to deploy a glider, which is an underwater torpedo that's going to live in the sea for 2 months and listen for North Atlantic right whales. And the North Atlantic right whales, there are only 370 individuals left. And they predominantly, like most of them, stay on the east coast of the US. And I think it's exciting that we have these big animals that swims all the way from the US to Greenland. We also know that some of the tuna that's outside where I live, they swim all the way to the east coast of the US. So after after having looked for the right whales, we sail on to Greenland, where we want to use the ROV, which you saw in the film from Svalbard initially. And then we want to sail back home as quickly as possible before the winter storms sets in. So this is approximately 7,000 kilometers. How much would that be in miles, Joe?
I've got to cut it roughly in half. So maybe around 2,500, 3,000 miles.
Yeah, 3,000 miles of sailing, which we'll do over 3 months. So it's quite a big expedition that's coming up. So
yeah, definitely.
Let me see, what else do we have in this presentation? This is from the Faroe Islands. We highlight the different things we want to do. So we have an educational program where we document our surroundings and share it with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And there's also like an online educational portal in the making. We collect ocean data, take water samples, and listen for whales with sound recorders and deploy the glider, as you saw. This is the main projects: the North Atlantic right whale, educational content, and then ROV exploration. And this is the team. Myself, we have Annika Mosland. She's a professional sailor, and she also has a PhD in quantum computing, so very advanced computer work. We have Stefan Leitner. He's an amazing photographer, a professional sail photographer. And then we have a Miriam Bell. She's working for GoPro, this action camera company that I'm sure you're familiar with. So this was a little bit of a sneak peek into my office work. So to be able to do what we do, it's a lot of work, and a lot of it happens in the office as well, to make sure we get the funding, the right people, the permits. So if you want to be a good explorer, you also have to do well in school.
Yeah. Andreas, can you expand a little bit on the map? It showed you be doing eDNA testing, so environmental DNA. Can you talk a little bit for students? That term might be unfamiliar. So what is it and what's it going to tell you?
Yes, I haven't worked on it yet, but my understanding of eDNA, so just like, so we all know of fingerprints. If you touch something, it's going to leave a fingerprint on that object. And similar, environmental DNA is any animal that's in the water will lose some skin particles in the water, or organic particles. So if you take a water sample anywhere in the world, this water will have DNA, which is the genetic signature of a species. So if I take a water sample in, say, up in Svalbard here, I take a gallon of water, and then you sample this water, and then you can find in that water, you will find some tissue from walrus, beluga whales, blue whales, polar bears, different fish species, different plankton species. So it's like the environmental footprint of that specific area. And if you then take samples all the way from Norway to Greenland, that will help you understand which species are around in these waters. So this is quite new to science and very exciting, I think.
Yeah, it is really cool. You can even do soil, test what's been in the soil. They're doing work in the air. So it's really cool how we can, wildlife doesn't always stick around. It's not always visible, but we can get that kind of bits of cells that they leave behind, and we can get a clearer picture, which is awesome. So it's great that you're incorporating that into the expedition as well. Andreas, we're at about that time where we're going to wrap up for today. But before we do, I'm just wondering, for students who maybe can't go on a big expedition right now, what advice would you give them to explore maybe the world around them and prepare for bigger expeditions in the future?
My main advice is to always be curious, curious about your surroundings, and also curious about the people you meet on your way. So for instance, when I grew up, I spent a lot of time catching crabs and going in the forest and looking at the plants. But I also spent a lot of time talking to grown-ups that had spent time in nature, and I was asking them what is it like out there. And this is something I still do if I'm come to a new place. I go to the Faroe Islands or Iceland. The first thing I do is to try to meet some local fishermen or fisherwomen and ask them about, okay, what advice do you have about this area? Have you seen any whales lately? Anything interesting we should see or do? So being curious is the one thing. So don't lose that curiosity. So children have the curiosity, but some grown-ups lose it, but keep that curiosity with you. And then another thing is to do a lot of different activities. If you do some hiking, some climbing, some swimming, so that these are things that are useful later in life. And then also I would advise you to be good at what you do and do things that you are passionate about. Try to do the things you're passionate about, because that's when you excel. And in my team, we have a lot of, I'm not great at anything. There's a lot of things I'm not very good at. But the good thing is that then I can have crew members that have the skill sets that I lack. So we have different people who are bad at some things, but excellent at other things, and combining it all, that's how we get a great team. So just be good at what you do and work with passion and curiosity, and then you can come on Barba in a couple of years.
All right. Excellent. Well, some people call them micro adventures, where you go out and explore a new trail, camp in a new place, swim in a new spot in your community. So I think that's a great tip for students this summer, is you don't always have to go somewhere far away. There's lots, I bet, you haven't seen in your own community, whether it's parks or conservation areas, camping in your friend's backyard, all kinds of things you can do to have your own little micro adventures this summer.
That's how
all right.
As well, Joe.
Yeah.
That's how I started, and I still do this, do local small expeditions, and still great fun.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's start off with a shout out to our classrooms. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and a shout out to those who will tune into the recording throughout World Ocean Week. Andreas, thank you to you. Thank you for letting us steal a bit of your time. I know things are busy as you prepare for another expedition. So I think the best thing we can do is wish you luck in Greenland, and we can't wait to see some of the videos, the education content, and maybe towards the end of August when classes are coming back, we can squeeze in some live action.
Sounds good, Joe. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We hope to see you in more World Ocean Week events. We're hanging out with Around the Americas, so another sailing expedition. They're sailing around North and South America, which are really just one big giant island. So we're meeting with them at noon Eastern. And then we have a full slate for tomorrow, including the Turtle Hospital in the Florida Keys. So hopefully you can join us for that. So thanks, classrooms. Enjoy the rest of your day. And Andreas, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.